So, what do an earthworm, a butterfly, and a snail all have in common? I mean, on the surface, it seems like not much, right? But these creatures represent three of the most successful designs in the entire history of life on Earth. Today, we're going to dive into the evolutionary story of these three master blueprints and see how each one totally conquered the planet in its own unique way.
Here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll meet our three main contenders. Then, we're going to put on our engineering hats and really look at their foundational architecture, their external armor, their appendages, and even their internal plumbing. And finally, we'll zero in on the key design choices that really set them apart.
All right, so the three big groups, the three phyla we're putting under the microscope are Annelida, Arthropoda, and Mollusca. Total household names if your house happens to be a biology lab. So let's make them a little more familiar.
Okay, so what are we really talking about here? We're talking about an earthworm, a butterfly, and an octopus. I mean, they couldn't seem more different from each other, could they? But believe it or not, they all share a distant common ancestor, long before they split off on these radically different evolutionary journeys. Honestly, this is the best way to think about them, as three completely distinct masterclasses in evolutionary engineering. Each one had to solve the exact same problems: survival, movement, reproduction. But they did it with a completely different set of tools. It's fascinating. So let's start with the most fundamental part of any design, right? The foundational architecture. How are these animals actually built from the ground up? What's so cool here is that they all start with the same basic principle, bilateral symmetry, a clear left and right side. But the blueprints diverge almost immediately after that. See, annelids and arthropods are metameric, which is just a fancy way of saying they're segmented. They're built from these repeating modules, kind of like a train. But mollusks, they totally ditch that design. And then you get to the body cavity. Annelids and mollusks have what's called a true column, a nice fluid-filled space that cushions all their organs. Arthropods, well, they went a completely different way. And that different way is called a hemocoel. And this concept is just wild. Instead of having blood neatly contained in veins and arteries, it just sloshes around inside the main body cavity. It's directly bathing all the organs. You can literally think of it as a constant internal bloodbath. Now, this isn't just some weird quirk. This is an absolutely crucial design choice for the entire arthropod blueprint. So, as you can imagine, those internal designs have huge implications for their external features. Let's take a look at how each of these blueprints armors itself up to face the outside world. This chart just lays out the different strategies so perfectly. You've got annelids, they're the minimalists, right? A flexible body, a thin skin, using these tiny little bristles called seta to grip and move around. Then you've got arthropods, the knights in shining armor, with that tough, rigid exoskeleton and those game-changing jointed legs. And then there are the mollusks. They're like mobile fortresses, where the soft body protected by a custom-built shell, gliding along on one single, powerful, muscular foot. So let's just pause on this, because it's a crucial point. The arthropod literally wears its skeleton on the outside. It's like a high-tech suit of armor. The mollusk, on the other hand, carries its protection around like a custom-built mobile home. These are two totally different solutions to the exact same problem of survival. Okay, so we've seen the outside. Now let's pop the hood and take a look at the internal engineering. The plumbing and the wiring that keeps these incredible machines running. And this is where that whole internal bloodbath, that hemocoel, really matters. See, arthropods and most mollusks have an open circulatory system. It's a low-pressure system. Annelids, on the other hand, have a closed system, just like we do, where blood is contained in high-pressure vessels. And this is a fundamental engineering choice. It dictates how efficiently you can move oxygen around, which in turn affects your speed, your size, and even how you get rid of waste, whether you're using simple kidney-like tubes called nephridia, or the super-efficient Malpighian tubules you find in arthropods. And just check out the breathing gear. Annelids and mollusks have pretty standard solutions, like the specialized feathery gills of mollusks called ctenidia. But the arthropod blueprint, it comes with a whole Swiss Army knife of breathing tools. They've got specialized tubes for breathing air, gills for water, and even these bizarre layered things called book lungs. This incredible adaptability is one of the secret weapons to their global success, for sure.
All right, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's distill all of that down to the three most important design differences that truly define these amazing animal blueprints.
When you really get down to it, it all comes down to three. 3 defining characteristics that separate these master blueprints from one another.
First up, body segmentation. Annelids and arthropods are modular. They're built from a series of repeating blocks. Mollusks, on the other hand, completely abandon that design, opting instead for an unsegmented, unified body plan.
Number 2, jointed legs. This is the big one. This is the game changer, the killer app for arthropods. No other blueprint has this feature. These versatile, multi-tool appendages allow them to walk, swim, fly, and basically colonize every single habitat on Earth.
And finally, number 3, the circulatory system. Remember the plumbing. Annelids use a high-pressure system of closed pipes. Arthropods and mollusks use that low-pressure open bath system. And that single decision has huge consequences for how they live and even how large they can get. Which leaves us with one last big question. When you think about it, with all the insects, crustaceans, and spiders, the arthropods account for over 80% of all known animal species on the planet. So given that incredible number, that mind-boggling diversity, does their blueprint, the exoskeleton, the jointed legs, the open circulation, does that represent the single most successful evolutionary design on planet Earth? That's something to think about.